videos.
We'll start with A Face in the Dark. That is a short story written by Ruskin Bond. Ruskin Bond, an Indian author of British descent, is a prolific writer whose works are popular with adults and children alike. All right, so he's from British descent, but he is a citizen of India, and he is a very good writer. And when the stories that he writes are loved by adults and children alike. All right, that is, it is interesting for both. The story that we are going to study, it is said that in the following story, writer Ruskin Bond relates a thrilling incident set among the picturesque hills around Shimla. All right, so the setting of the story is around Shimla. Ruskin Bond's fascination with the paranormal finds expression in this macabre tale. So this is a thrilling incident that is being narrated in this story, that is exciting and that is going to give you some chill. All right. So and macabre tale is a tale that involves something that frightens you. All right, or something that creates a fear in you. All right, it might be violence, it might be death, it might be some supernatural thing. Whatever that instills fear in you can be referred to as macabre tale. All right, so now in this story Ruskin Bond is doing the same thing. He is creating a paranormal atmosphere, and then he is writing this story. Mr. Oliver, a school teacher, is on his way back to school late one night when he meets a strange young boy. The encounter fills him with terror and he takes to his heels. Takes to his heels means he starts running. All right, running very fast. You can write there if you want. Takes to his heels is running very fast. Only to discover that there is no escape for him. All right, he runs, but he finds that there is no escape. Ruskin Bond, that is, he cannot escape the situation that he is in. Ruskin Bond makes skillful use of all the elements of a horror story. That is, what are the elements of a good horror story? There should be fear, there should be surprise, suspense, and mystery to explore humanity's collective fascination with the dark. So there is a dark atmosphere, and that has got fear and surprise and suspense and mystery instilled in it. So we come to the story. Says Mr. Oliver, an Anglo-Indian teacher. Anglo-Indian, you must be knowing that when the Britishers they had come, some of them they married Indian women, or and then the children that were born out of them were half British and half Indian. So they were referred to as Anglo-Indian. So now by this word Anglo-Indian, we can consider that this story has been set up maybe just after post independent times. All right, maybe in the post independent times. Mr. Oliver, an Anglo Indian teacher, was returning to his school late one night. So Mr. Oliver is this teacher in a school, and probably he lives in the school premises itself. So he is now returning to school on the outskirts of hill station of Shimla. The story has been set up in Shimla, on the outskirts of Shimla. Outskirts would mean the farthest boundaries of a place. All right, the irregular, not well defined boundaries, but when a city's boundaries ends. So the farthest of the boundaries, that is, the farthest of the places of a city or a town, are said to be the outskirts. So in Shimla also, the hill station of Shimla, the outskirts are being referred over here, and he is returning to his school, um, and it's very late at night. Before Kipling's time, the school had been run on English public school lines, and the boys, most of them from wealthy Indian families, wore blazers, caps, and ties. Life magazine, in a feature on India, had once called it the Eton of the East. Mr. Oliver had been teaching in the school for several years. Now, this explanation is about the school. They are saying that from Kipling's timings, that is Rudyard Kipling's timings, he was also an author, and he says that from his timings, what had happened, that this school had been run just the way the English public schools were running. English would mean
Nishant, switch on your video. It's just a screenshot. Nishant, you and Ilma. Most of the time, it's like this only.
it would mean that on the same lines as the England schools were teaching. Similarly, this school had the the education structure. All right, and then the boys that studied over here, they were from wealthy Indian families, the families that had a lot of money. Then the students over here, they wore blazers, then caps and ties. That is, the uniform is being described. Then Life magazine. There must have been a magazine that was circulated during those times, and its name is Life. And when it featured an article on India, it had called this school as Eton of the East. So you can underline Eton of the East. It is, you can take it as a metaphor where it is being compared to another school, that is the school Eton College, that was present, that was England's most elite school. All right, elite public school, and this particular school is being compared to England's elite school. All right. Then it's said that Mr. Oliver had been teaching in this school for several years. So he has been teaching over here for quite a few years, and that means he is accustomed to the area very well, and therefore we can say that he is returning very late at night because he has no worries. He's accustomed to the area very well. The Shimla, you can write it over there, Eton of the East. You can underline and you can write over there that it's a metaphor where the school is compared to Eton College, and Eton College is the England's most elite public school. Mayank, you don't want to write? Write it down. All right. Then the Shimla Bazaar with its cinemas, restaurants, was about 3 miles from the school. And Mr. Oliver, a bachelor, usually strolled into the town in the evening, returning after dark when he would take a shortcut through the pine forest. So it was very usual for Mr. Oliver to return in the dark, that is, return late at night. Shimla Bazaar was set up with all the, you know, how the marketplaces are. They have all the restaurants, cinema halls, all right, the shops and all. They contain, and this bazaar was located about 3 miles away from where the school was. So Mr. Oliver, he usually took a walk down to the bazaar. Stroll means walking leisurely, and he went to the town in the evening, and he would often return after dark. That is, in the evening he would walk down to the town 3 miles away, and then he would return late at night. And while returning, what he would do, he would take a shortcut through the pine forest. He would not return from the main road. He would come through the pine forest. That is, a forest is also located between the bazaar and the school, and he takes a shortcut through that. And it is also mentioned over here that Mr. Oliver is a bachelor. When there was a strong wind, the pine trees made sad, eerie sounds that kept most people to the main road. Now an atmosphere is being created over here. The beginning of it has been what? That the pine trees, when he's passing through the pine forest, they've mentioned that he takes a shortcut through the pine forest. But then again in the second line, the author says that these pine trees made sad, eerie sounds. Eerie would mean a strange, frightening sound. All right. That is, when the wind blows, when a strong wind blows, the pine trees, the leaves, they rub against each other, and they make a frightening sound. And this sound kept most people to the main road. That is, people were scared to walk through the pine forest in the dark. All right. They usually, though it was a long way by the main road, but they stayed on the main road. They did not prefer to take the shortcut through the pine forest. So obviously, when Mr. Oliver is taking the shortcut through the pine forest all alone in the dark, that and every day, that means we can say that he is a courageous man. So please keep noting these points so that when you have to give the character sketch, you have the points with you. But Mr. Oliver was not a nervous or imaginative man. So it is said that he was not a nervous. People, others, they used to stay to the main road and avoid the pine forest. But Mr. Oliver, he was not a nervous man. He was not scared, and he was not an imaginative man. Imaginative here can be referred to, that is, he believed that the ghosts and all these are creations of human imagination. All right. He did not used to imagine such things that they exist. That is, he must not have believed in ghosts and all. The supernatural things he must not have believed in them. So he was not an imaginative man. He carried a torch, and its gleam, the batteries were running down. So usually what happens, he carries a torch, and he's carrying the torch today again also, but its gleam, what has happened to its gleam, the light that comes out of the torch, what has happened to it, the batteries were running down. So again, there is an element that is adding to the frightening atmosphere scenario that is being created. That is, the batteries are running down, the torch might switch off. All right. So there is a suspense or mystery being built up over here. Moved fitfully down the narrow forest path. So he is just moving quickly down the forest path, the narrow path that has been must have been over there. He's walking down that path. When its flickering light fell, why flickering? Because the batteries are running down, so it is continuously being, the torch is switching on and off within seconds. So the light is being put on and put out. The light is continuously flickering. All right. So the flickering light fell in the figure of a boy. All right. So when he is walking down, he has switched on his torch. The light is flickering, and that light fell on a boy, fell on the figure of a boy. All right. Why figure of a boy? Because it is, again, just underline it. I'll explain that later on. Let it be mystery right now. All right. Underline figure of a boy so that I do not forget to explain that. Who was sitting alone on a rock? So there's a figure of a boy, and he's sitting alone on a rock, and Mr. Oliver sees him. Mr. Oliver stopped. So seeing the boy, Mr. Oliver stopped. Boys were not supposed to be out after dark. So obviously he must have thought that this boy is from the hostel or from the school, and he is out in the dark late at night, sitting all alone in the forest. So being their teacher, he's obviously concerned. He's concerned that the boys are not supposed to be out in the dark such late at night. So why is this particular child sitting over here? So he stops. And what are you doing out here, boy? Asked Mr. Oliver sharply, moving closer so that he could recognize the miscreant. Why miscreant? Miscreant is a person who has done some mischief. So Mr. Oliver thinks that he must be out to do some mischief. Otherwise, why is he out here in the dark? So he must be up to some mischief, and he asks sharply, means questioning the boy with authority, that what are you doing out here, boy? That is, why are you not in your bed up by now? But even as he approached the boy, that is, when he was approaching means moving towards the boy, Mr. Oliver sensed that something was wrong. Right. Again, a line that is giving you a chill feeling, a thrilling feeling that something is wrong. Mr. Oliver, though he has not seen anything, though he's not nothing is abnormal up till now, but still when Mr. Oliver is moving closer to the boy, he is feeling that something is wrong. The boy appeared to be crying. All right, so he felt that the boy is crying. His body, his head hung down. He held his face in his hands. So his head is hanging down, and he has hidden his face with his hands, and his body shook convulsively. All right, his body is shaking very bad. Convulsively would mean that moving very suddenly or fast, so he is shaking very badly. It was a strange soundless weeping, and Mr. Oliver felt distinctly uneasy. So now, though the boy appeared to be crying, it seemed that he is crying, his body was shaking, but when he was crying, it was a soundless cry. All right, there was no sound at all in his crying. So it seemed very strange. And so because when you are crying very badly, so it is usually that you cry very loud. All right, you cry loudly when you cannot control your emotions. It is usually that your voice bursts and you cry loudly. So this particular boy, he's crying so badly that whole body is shaking, but there is no sound in his cry. So Mr. Oliver felt strange and uneasy. You can see the words that are being used to bring out the supernatural element, or bring out the fear in the readers. Strange, uneasy. All right, you can use these words when you explain your answers. Then, well, what's the matter? He asked, his anger giving away to concern. When he saw that the boy's crying so badly, his anger changed to concern. Now he's not angry. Instead, he's concerned for the boy, and he asked that, what is the matter with you? What are you crying for? All right, sitting in the forest all alone and crying. So he says that, what is the matter? Why are you crying? The boy would not answer or look up. The boy neither answered to his question, nor did he look up towards him. His body continued to be racked with silent sobbing. So it continued to be shaking, and his sobbing continued to be silent. That is, when he was sobbing, when he was crying, it remained silent. There was no sound in his cry. Come on, boy, you shouldn't be out here at this hour. Tell me the trouble, look up. So Mr. Oliver is again saying to the boy that you should not be here at this time of the day, at night. So please tell me, what is the problem? What is the trouble? Look up at me. All right, so please talk to me, convey me what is your problem. So look up to me. The boy looked up. So the boy, he looked up at his teacher. He took his hands from his
Don't
face.
go inside the phone. You are
all right. So the boy, he looked up. He took his hands from his face and looked up at his teacher. He removed his hands from his face that he had covered his face with. He removed the hands and he looked up at his teacher. The light from Mr. Oliver's torch fell on the boy's face. He, lighted his torch on the boy's face to see that which boy or who is he. So, if you could call it a face. So, the author is saying that when Mr. Oliver's torch's light fell on the boy's face, he's saying, if you could call it a face. He says that I'm saying face, the boy's face, but it was hardly a face. It had no eyes, ears, nose, or mouth. Usually what happens that our face has got eyes, nose, mouth, and then ear. So he's saying that you can hardly call it a face. The boy's face did not have eyes, it did not have a nose, it did not have a mouth, it did not have the ears. It was round, smooth head. It was just a round, smooth head with a school cap on top of it. And why Mr. Oliver, why he was concerned that the boy is not in the school and out in the dark? Because He was wearing the school cap. All right. So by the cap, he must have recognized that this is a child from his own school. And that is why he was so concerned. So this smooth round head was just wearing a cap on top of it. And that's not where the story should end. So, it should end. So the author is saying, now such a dreadful thing has happened that Mr. Oliver has encountered a boy whose face was faceless. All right. But so usually what happens, that such a terrible thing had happened. So now it must end. The worries should end over here. But for Mr. Oliver, it did not end here. That is, something else happened. So for Mr. Oliver, the hard part was not over yet. So what happened? The torch fell from his trembling hand. The torch that he had held, it fell from his trembling hand. Trembling means shaking, shaking with fear. So Mr. Oliver got frightened and his hands started shaking and the torch fell from his hands. He turned and scrambled down the path. So he turned from the side of the boy and he started running, moving with scrambled would mean move with panic. So he is panicking, he is frightened, and he started running down the path, running blindly through the trees and calling for help. Now, just a few seconds back, he was, trying to help another person. He was trying to help the boy, but seconds later, he is himself calling out for help. So now situation has changed. He is running blindly through the trees and calling for help. He was still running towards the school buildings. Now he is running towards the school, when he saw a lantern swinging in the middle of the path. So he's running towards the school building and he saw that a lantern is just swinging in the middle of the path. Mr. Oliver stumbled to the watchman. So now there is a watchman standing with the lantern. So at first he just saw the lantern swinging in the middle of the path. Then when he must have moved forward, he stumbled to the watchman. That is, he just hit against the watchman, or just saw that the watchman was there gasping for breath. So he has lost his breath because of all the fear and running. So he is gasping for breath. What is it, Sahib? Asked the watchman. So he saw the watchman and the watchman asked, what is it, Sahib? Sahib refers to sir. All right. So he says that, what is it, Sahib? What is the matter that you are so scared? Asked the watchman, has there been an accident? Why are you running? So he must have seen the condition of Mr. Oliver, and therefore he asked that, what is wrong? Has some accident happened? Why are you running in this manner? I saw something horrible. A boy weeping in the forest. He had no face. So he is very scared. When you see dashes and hyphens over here in Mr. Oliver's dialogues, it shows that he cannot speak properly. That is, he's so scared that he has even lost his speech. So he is just speaking in words, not proper sentence. He says that I saw something. What something? Something horrible. I saw something very horrible. A boy weeping in the forest. A boy was weeping in the forest. And he had no face. So what was the strange thing about the boy? That he had no face. No face, Sahib? So the watchman is confused. He asked, no face? What do you mean that he has no face? No eyes, no nose, mouth, nothing. So he says that he did not have eyes, he did not have nose, he did not have a mouth. There was nothing on his face. Do you mean it was like this, Sahib? So the climax is very interesting. The watch asked the watchman and raised the lamp to his own face. So what did the watchman do? He lifted the lamp up to his face so that Mr. Oliver could see the watchman's face, and he asked that, was the boy's face like this? And he showed his own face. The watchman had no eyes, no ears, no features at all. So the watchman was also similar to the boy that had been weeping in the forest. The watchman too did not have eyes, nose, or mouth, no features at all. not even an eyebrow. So this one he had noticed more clearly, and he says that this one he did not even have an eyebrow. And that's when the wind blew the lamp out. So just the way that he lost the sight of the boy when the torch fell from his hands, similarly over here, he lost the sight of the watchman because the wind blew the lamp out. And at this climax itself, the author ends your story, just leaving it up to your imagination that what could have happened next. What could have happened to Oliver? Was he able to run away and save himself, escape from the situation, or did he fell down and faint, or did something even more terrible happen to her? We do not know. It is left to the reader's imagination by the author. All right, so this was this was your story.